that they can daisy chain those things out and extend quite a ways. And they've done that in some places.
Right.
But I'll let our meeting start. So,
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, Lewis, I think you're set. All right, yeah, so we were trying to record that last, but Ally's not here today, so if we don't record everything,
That's the
we're
best part of the meeting.
deep trouble. So just want to thank everybody. Go ahead, call the meeting to order here. Thank everybody for being with us this lovely afternoon. If I look a little bit upset, I just got off the phone with somebody in Jefferson City, and I think I had a blood pressure spike. So it wasn't about Tim Arbeiter. Just want that out there.
Wow.
You probably haven't heard it yet, and I'll just, lead into this. Tim Arbeiter is leaving as state broadband director effective December 17th, is what I was told yesterday.
effective when?
December 17th. So there is a search. Anybody interested in that?
There's Brian Nichols.
Cammy, Ally, just trying to think anybody else out there within the sound of our voice. And I don't have Cammy's email, so if somebody's got that, please forward it to me so we can, give her a nudge and say, please do this. But yeah, that's really going to complicate the picture moving forward as we go through this legislative session, and we don't have the go-to person in the position we would like to have him in at the moment. So
It's a big hire. It's a big move.
It's a huge loss for what we're trying to do. It's not fatal, but it's going to be tough to replace Tim. He just,
If there's, Lewis, if there's any saving grace on it, it's that we have a really good grant program in place. And so the framework of how to distribute money is there for whoever comes in. So
my fear is we got $401 million to start with, depending on when the infrastructure hits another 100 plus. And I don't know when that, Brian probably has a little more insight on that, when it's actually going to materialize. We're talking $500 million here, and
Nobody knows.
we need some folks who can speak to the issues authoritatively, and Tim was that guy, and that won't be an option in 2022. So we're making do with what we have at the moment. So I'll just go ahead. Agenda, this minutes. Anybody have any questions, additions, subtractions to the minutes? If not, entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved. Job, JR.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Old business, just want to go over briefly. Had some good success with the webinar we did last time. Had a lot of good feedback. Made that available to all my colleagues in the House, both sides of the aisle, and have heard back from some folks. A special shout out to Representative Railsback for his tutorial on how to plan and not get burned. So had a lot of good feedback from that. And if anybody else has heard anything, please let me know. If we can improve on that, we'll do it. But that's something we're struggling to gain traction with some areas of the state, and I've had some conversations with folks all over. It's a problem in areas that especially are losing population, that are really struggling. They just not sure which way to turn. They've got some serious problems. Corey's had interesting thoughts over the years about how to manage these situations better. But at this moment, I think the best shot we've got is folks hooking up with their RPCs and getting in touch with some professionals that actually do this for a living, and getting some results out of it. So any other old business that's going to just move reports from steering committee members. Where are we? What are we doing? What do we see in the way of progress? And we've had some movement in Marion County, Sheridan Valley. Also had some folks in Shelby County express some concerns, and Mark Twain stepped in a breach there. So if we just go around the horn here, we'll go ahead and start Sheridan Valley. Or what we got the last month, and
we're working with county commissioners and stuff in Shelby and Marion County currently, and trying to figure out and getting them some pricing and deciding what if they do want to, where at, and the locations in their counties.
Okay. And as far as the commission, there was a meeting. It's David on there. Anybody from the Marion County Commission? Don't see
I don't
anybody.
see anybody.
Don't hear anybody. If you could just walk us through what the process looks like, what the status is. I know we had a meeting where there was some pledges made. Let's just walk through what that looks like.
So we've met with them a few times. We met with them to see what areas they were interested in. They know their counties, better than we do, of course, and it's their money. We're just trying to help them out. So they kind of showed us the counties, and we go in and we build out, the cost of the area that they're looking at doing, and take that back, present that to the commissioners, and we're going from there. And that's kind of where the process is, to secure.
And were there any stipulations as far as what their focuses or emphasis is going to be on?
More of the rural area. I do believe, just from conversation, and then we're working like some of the areas, like say, our example, we're already there in the town. So I think their focus was more on the rural parts. So
The
of
county,
the counties.
as we call it, the county.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And was there a timeline as far as next meeting or?
As far as Marion, there's not a next meeting set. I think we're working on that process right now. Actually, it's being worked on. We're going to be setting those up soon. Again.
Yeah, and Lewis, I met with them as well. I went up and met with them, was it last Monday? And talked to them and what the Mark Twain reported was kind of the same thing I got there. They kind of gave me an idea of the areas they were looking to build. So I'm working on getting a design put together. And I think from the way it was described to me anyway, it's looking like they're wanting to kind of get an idea of what the total cost is going to be before they, so that they can figure out exactly kind of what amount of money they're looking at. They're going to be needing to put up for this and talking to the providers. And then there will be some sort of a formal sort of bid process coming at some point down the road. But I think they're trying to get some initial feedback about total costs and, to get some sort of semblance of this is what we should be putting up in order to get this done. And so I'm working on getting that. I should have something here by the end of the week. So I don't know what their plan is for next week with it being a holiday week, but at least that following week I can get back up there and talk to them. So
Mike, is that just in Marion County, or are you talking to Mark Twain in regards to all the Northeast region?
well, I mean, I'm not talking to Mark Twain really because they're a competitor, but
Okay.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, from Charter's perspective, I mean, we're being very aggressive in pursuing some of this rural funding. We've got a priority in the state, around the country really, on rural build out. So, we're being aggressive in pursuing funding at the local level and state level and federal level, and being aggressive in putting up our own capital to build out. So, anyone that's interested in doing it, I'm happy to put together a bid, a quote, basically on what it would cost. We can talk about how to break it out from there, or partner to go after, some of those other pots of money. So, I'm happy to talk to whoever. Problem, John, for you is I'm not really that close.
Yeah, I know.
So
There's no charter around here.
yeah, distance is hard. So, I mean, we would have to come in from Hannibal, maybe Moberly, in order to get there. But it's something I can absolutely run if you're interested for Lewis County.
Michael, I have a question for you. And it's maybe not right time, but what are we going to do if there's people out there that there ain't enough for them to justify running a cable to them? How are we going to service these people?
Well, I mean, that's what the point of this funding is for. I mean, it's whether it be at the state or local level, it's to help make those households make more financial sense. You know, I mean, that's because initially, I mean, it's just the upfront cost. I mean, all of us operate under what we classify as an ROI, right? So this is how much it costs up front. And then, you know, customers signing up and getting the service pays that back. And so getting those additional resources, that's what, you know, in my mind, that's what this money is for. And so, you know, in some situations, the counties, because of the nature of the existing providers there and sort of the existing coverage, it can make sense to build out the rest of the county, for instance. In those situations, it's pretty easy. This county does an RFP and says who wants to build out, and they go with the lowest and best offer, right, to get service to everyone. In some counties, though, it's going to have to either be cobbled together at the county level with the providers that are in certain pockets, or, you know, the county's going to have to make a certain determination
Right.
on how they want to move forward. I just had this conversation down in Southeast Missouri today with the county commissioner, was how should we go about doing this? Should we work with everyone? Should we just pick one to go for it? And that's really up to them. You know, there's a lot of funding coming available with this. There's USDA Reconnect coming down the road. There's obviously the $100 million in the infrastructure bill. That's going to be in addition to what the governor's already announced on broadband. I mean, in these situations where a county may not be able to work with a provider to get all the way, you can if you get something in place, you can go after that money as a team, and it works a lot better.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask because I know, like in Clark County as well as in Scotland County, there's a lot of remote houses in areas, and there ain't, you know, they're getting to be less homes. Farms are disappearing, but yet there's some people on these farms. Is it going to be feasibly economical to get them tied on? And then what's the cost going to be to them to get all this? You know, I'm trying to keep everything cost affordable, because you know how our incomes are in Northeast Missouri. They're not St. Louis.
Right. Well, and that's an important thing. I think that, you know, and it's part of the state grant program, and you know, you've seen situations of providers that aren't in this room or aren't on this call that have, you know, gotten federal funding to build out a project area, and then, you know, it's $200 for 5 meg service of wireless, you know, because they know they're the only one in town, and that you can't do that. I mean,
Right. Exactly.
Well, just to follow on that, I sat down with a couple of economists yesterday who have gone through 2 of the RPCs in the southeast, south central part of the state, basically county by county, school district by school district, and have drilled down to provider, speed, the whole 9 yards. Basically, they are looking at the flip side of what happens if you don't have broadband internet that's sustainable. And y'all familiar, Ripley County's allegedly now lost 24% of its population in the last 10 years down on the Arkansas line. We've got population loss up, you know, on the Iowa line. I saw some numbers yesterday that were rather brutal as we work through the redistricting process. So typically, you know, if you build it, they will come. The problem is they haven't built it and they're leaving. And that's something we see it in county after county. So it's not just particular us, it's all the entire state. And those interested, we're going to have those folks testify. It's November 22nd. That'll be at the last meeting. We have folks, you know, for the interim committee on broadband development actually in testify mode. So it's they've got, I don't know, several hundred pages worth of material. I asked them to compress that down into an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of presentation. So there's some pretty compelling numbers in there. Invite everybody, if you have the opportunity, to take a look at that, if not in real time. You know, we archive that and dial that up at some point later on, but the numbers they're not pretty, and it's all over the state. So I'm trying to think here next. Brian, you want to go ahead and give us a federal perspective?
Sure. I will let Sarah talk more specifically to the infrastructure bill and the broadband stuff. If she's got anything on that, I don't. Though just one thing I would mention is that Congressman Graves' E-Bridge Act passed in the House earlier this month. Or was it last month? Late last month. Anyway, in the last few weeks. And that particular bill deals with EDA and removing some of the red tape and different things that keep EDA from utilizing dollars for broadband projects. And so it just clarifies a few things and hopefully will make that easier and enables communities to partner with private entities with EDA funds on broadband projects. So we think that's a good thing, and that passed the House recently and will hopefully pass the Senate. I feel like we've got good momentum on that bill. So it's not a big flashy thing, but it's just one of those things where it's just one more hurdle that hopefully will be out of the
All
way.
helps.
Yeah.
Sarah there,
There somewhere.
paging Sarah.
She might be muted.
Oh, now she's
She's muted. She just muted herself. She need me to unmute her? Let's try that.
oh, she just wants to- I don't know if you can actually unmute.
Trying to. Oh, weird. There she goes.
There she is.
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we
Yes.
can.
Okay, sorry. I kept hitting *6. No, sorry, I don't have a lot of information on specifically the broadband aspects of the infrastructure bill that the president signed. The senator was supportive of the bill, and I have a little more information on the roads and bridges aspect, but I don't have a lot on the broadband part, and we certainly don't know how it's going to be implemented. So when that information becomes available and when I start, I'll find out more information. I'll certainly let you guys know, but sorry, I don't have a lot of additional info today.
And I was going to ask, I mean, it's $100 million minimum. Is there any indication of what the scale is going to look like for over and above that? So we're 31st, 32nd, whatever. Is there an additional $40, $50 million attached to that because of where we are as far as, you know, access, speed, what have you? I mean, is there a formula, anything you've looked at that they've put out in draft form, or any clue that you've heard, and how we're going to basically scale that?
I don't, but that will be the question that I ask. So I'll figure that out for you, Louis, as soon as I can and get you info.
Okay, so closer to 200 would be nice. 100's fine. For, you know, now
Sure,
fall.
sure. The more the better, right?
And thank y'all for hanging in there on that. And I continue to pray for Manchin and send him his good health every night so that other monstrosity doesn't do what it thinks it's going to do. So sorry.
Could go
Yeah,
through.
President Manchin is, yeah, doing well, hopefully.
Let's see, Sherry, are you there?
She is.
Paging Sherry Shenoward.
Sorry, couldn't find the mute button. Could you hear me okay?
You can.
All right.
What do we have from DED? Aside from we need
Well,
a provider, fast.
yeah, basically, like everybody's saying, we're still waiting on a lot of the guidance that we're going to get on these different initiatives. ARPA funding, we're waiting on that. We know the governor, we will have things in place if and when the governor's suggestion for the 400 million for broadband is ready. Tim, despite the fact that he's leaving, they were already interviewing people for the other positions in the broadband office. So I feel like we'll have some people in place because it's going to be very important to have somebody who's a grant specialist to be able to answer questions. And that should be in place before he leaves.
Any chance Luke will come back?
I doubt it. I think Luke likes where he's at.
I know Luke likes where he's at. We would just like to see Luke back someplace else.
Yeah, I know, but Luke is liking, they're doing some really, we're already seeing some changes in Jefferson City with, he's bringing in some different ideas there and they're working already.
That's why we want him back in that other place he left. Yes.
Show me the money.
Yeah, we're getting, so Louis, just to give an overview, we're getting a lot of questions about the broadband and other CDBG grants that are out there. And we're just doing the best we can to let them know. As you can imagine what it was like with CARES Act for DED, when we start rolling out the ARPA funds, it's going to be intense. So we're doing a lot of training, a lot of preparation to be ready so that when the broadband comes out, as people apply for grants, we're going to be ready to help them, regardless of who's in leadership.
Are there any tripwires out there that you guys are seeing already? I know CARES had the SB done by the end of the year. I mean, they're trying to take a lighter touch with ARPA. Are you seeing anything or hearing anything that gives you pause?
The biggest challenge we're having, and some of them alluded to it, it's not so much the care side of things, it's the ARPA, is communities, as you know, with the water and wastewater, the recommendation through DNR is going to be, the state's going to put up the 400 million, but they're going to expect the locals to use some of their funds to help with that. And a lot of the communities are getting frustrated because they want to use that money, and some of them have already committed it. They had things that they felt were important that they needed to get done, and they've done that. And now, of course, they're hearing a lot through the grapevine, and I am going to share this on up. Our chain of command, it actually was just yesterday and today. I've had a couple of conversations of communities that are back to that. Well, we're almost afraid to do anything because we may miss out on some state funding because we were trying to take care of local challenges. And that way, again, broadband's one of them, but the wastewater is the other one. And of course, all of those impact our community.
Is Tracy still on there?
I'm here.
Are you hearing anything at the association level that's giving you pause?
As far as the ARPA funding and the direction that most is going, here in Audoin County, we're getting hammered with water districts wanting to expand, and obviously that's a no-brainer if somebody wants to invest in that. But we're also working and have actually just had a discussion with the Rawls County Commission. They're wanting to expand outside their county because some of our electric co-op is in their county and then right across the border. So we're looking at partnering possibly with them and getting the two co-ops together to provide fiber to those homes right there on that border. This is really not the ARPA money conversation, but I was just on a call yesterday with the National Association of Counties. Obviously, broadband is very important. We need to focus on that. But some of this infrastructure money, they've got some cutout specifically for cybersecurity. So, small counties that don't have real IT staff, they need to be looking at the infrastructure money, and we're really not sure how that's going to be dispersed, but we're thinking that it's going to be more of a grant program through the state. And so the cybersecurity funds can also be used for some infrastructure through that infrastructure package that was just passed. So that would be something to consider. On the on the state association level, and actually Joe's on a committee with me, we're going to be having our first formal committee meeting at the MAC conference this weekend. We have actually developed policy and practices for our committee. And we also have 3 resolutions that we're going to see if we can pass and get submitted to help all counties, all representatives and senators in Missouri to try to, push through some things. So I'd be happy to share that in a link, or I can email somebody and they can share that document out. It's, it's public information. So I'd be happy to share that if anybody'd like to review it and critique it. And if they see anything that would need to be changed, I'd really appreciate, a note before Sunday. No, yeah, Sunday morning is when we're supposed to meet. So that I don't have a whole lot to add other than that right now, unless somebody has questions, specific questions.
Can you send that to Ally?
Sure.
Ally directly, and she'll get it out to the rest of us. And I have a question. I mean, from a resolution standpoint, is there anything in there that legislatively speaking, I don't know if you guys have talked to Farm Bureau at all. We're seeing a lot of resolutions come out as far as broadband, and how to commit those funds. Is that something, are different groups talking about these? Is this basically something that's organic?
It's a little organic, but we tried to develop it specifically for the state of Missouri and counties. They're sort of broad topics, but I think they're very important. One sort of covers funding, one covers the granular testing, and the ability to update the map so we all know what's really going on. And then, being included in the conversations at the very beginning for all communities. Those are the resolutions. And then the policies address some things that we recommend for all counties.
So would you guys be averse to having, say, legislation introduced that equip counties to form districts to sort of pass through agencies where they could talk to providers, like some of the folks on our call to say, hey, we'd love to have an RFP from you, sort of like what Leopold Schneider is doing in Cole County at the moment? Would that be amenable?
Yeah, we would be happy to entertain that. And I think, Joe, you jump in anytime, Joe, if you would like. We have a small committee, so I don't think it's going to be an issue trying to get some things presented to the full board, because we'll have to take it to the full board and they will have to adopt those resolutions. But I think at this point, I think the board is very open to seeing and pushing, more attention to the broadband issue.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Tracy. I think so too. What you've put together for all of us to have, I think is very, very well rounded, very well explanatory, and I think it's got a lot of goodness to it. So I think we'll be all right with it.
I was going to, I didn't ask you, Sherry, earlier, are there any resources right now that you'd recommend folks go to within DED on the website?
I think the best that I could suggest right now is under ded.mo.gov. We do have still a COVID link that does have business and community resources. One of the things I just found that they've updated yesterday are contact people for the various programs. And I've been directing people there because there have been changes, but it's I think it's very helpful if you want to know who to talk to about some of the different funding resources. Those names are actually up on that website now.
Thank you.
Oh, this is Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I think too that depending on the RPCs and the COGS, I think that all of those persons that we have contacts with and you have contacts with are keeping up to date on this as much as possible. I think until the final guidelines are, shall we say, official or published, is going to be what is the real test. But in the meantime, you can kind of follow it and see how it's evolving to gauge the type of proposal that you want to put forth.
Thank you. Randy, what's going on Northwest?
Not very much yet. You know, it's the same story. The easiest to get to are already being served. The hard to get to, especially in the northern counties, you know, are the last. And we're all going to have to keep in mind, no matter what, when we're talking about water districts, for instance, we're gonna see, you know, the most expensive and the hardest to get to people. That's where we're going to have to supplement, you know, the cost of getting them fiber, for instance. And in our area, we've got 2 big lake projects. And one of the things we've said is that no matter what, don't put a trencher in the ground to put in a water line or anything else unless you put fiber in there with it, because that, you know, greatly reduces the cost of running it. But let's not trench in some water lines or do a water district expansion, or in these cases, relocate water lines because of lake projects, unless we go ahead and run fiber along in there with it while we're doing the trenching. So again, it's all the above, but we are seeing some progress in some areas with some more of the smaller mom and pop telephone companies and such. They're doing good things. But we're at a point now where it's just like water. I've got a lot of water districts. You know, if your house doesn't have water, its value is greatly diminished. And now it's going to be the same with fiber. If people don't have it to their house, it's going to cut the cost and the value of the property.
So the accountants visited with yesterday, and we're throwing numbers around, and on that plus side, it was 7,000 was basically the bare minimum. So we've got areas of the state where, I know from Rawls County perspective, actually starting to cut taxes because the increase in property value is appreciated that much. The revenue is that high. Are able to actually sit there and talk about rolling some of their taxes back. So that's the best case. And we saw it from Rawls County today. Let's see. Well, you know, who's Lynn Hodges today?
Oh, Lynn's sitting there probably in a deer stand somewhere is where I'm guessing. So good for him.
As long as he bought his deer tag. This is Rawls County. Just, you guys have an update as far as we had Wiley testify in front of us here a little while back, and so within a calendar year, the entire county is going to be served. So how are you guys doing on pace?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good pace right now. You know, we've got some additional funding from Rawls County. We're building out some of the areas. We just got our RDOF announcement this week or last week as well. So that closes a few more of our gaps in Rawls County, extends us a little bit into parts of Monroe, south of Monroe City, parts of Audrain there along Highway 154 south of the lake. We've also been working with Pike County too to coverage around the Frankfurt area. And then we've got some further conversations with them to get further south into Pike County in dealing with and working with 2 of our other co-ops in that area. So kind of our game plan here over the next year, working with those entities and pushing the fiber even further into the rural area. So.
Just sort of a thumbnail sketch. How are you all accomplishing that, going into other people's county service areas, what have you, territorial agreements? What mechanism are you using?
We are still working on what we're going to do with the other cooperatives. We're looking more so a partnership. We're trying to draw up that language. Today, I know Lynn has been working with the statewide association on trying to come up with a format across the board to work within that area. Lynn can probably speak on it more than I can because he's dealing with it one-on-one on those purposes, but that's kind of the pathing we're looking forward to be able to bridge the gap with these other co-ops that don't necessarily want to get in this business, but definitely want to help their membership out. So
And anything legislatively that you guys are looking at that would help us to help you remove barricades? Randy mentioned basically one dig. Are there any other areas that you guys are looking at from a co-op standpoint? Any, this general question, any provider out there, things that we can look at, the make-ready space, any sort of, competition, prohibitions, what have you? What are folks looking at? What are you talking about? What are you hearing?
I mean, from our standpoint, our major inhibitions at this point are dealing with other utilities and attachment agreements. While we think as a co-op, we have somewhat of a favorable attachment agreement, we're pretty universal across the board. We feel like we've been getting sidebarred by some other entities on approaching and making attachments. And again, this is something more Lynn has been dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I think make ready is always important, if legislative wise about trying to come up with agreements along that front to make that a lot easier to approach for any entity to want to come out and build into any area along those points. But those are two big sticking points for us. Again, the attachment agreement, maybe come up with some universal language across the board that makes these things a little more easier to swallow. We know everyone's infrastructure is important, but when we're seeing pricing from one side and we look at our pricing or other entities' pricing, it just seems way out of bounds. So
Yeah, ditto to all of that. I Representative Riggs, I know that we've talked previously. I think for us, what we're seeing some states do on this make ready piece, obviously there's been some states that have did quite a bit in the pole attachment space. That's not something that I think we're going to be pursuing, but obviously in listening and talking to some of the co-ops, I think, a lot of times these are co-op poles. And so, I think letting them sort of work through what some of those attachment changes would look like, I think makes more sense rather than us as a private provider coming in and doing that. So I think our focus is largely going to be on sort of a fairly specific thing that I think could really help with expediting the construction of, as we look at the situation that we're all in right now, at least from my company's perspective, we've got a pretty good situation with our supply chain right now, the materials that we need. That's largely because we knew we were going to go big on RDOF, and so we've got that ready. And so the challenge though is that when all this money starts hitting like next year, it's going to strain the supply chain. So I don't know what that's going to look like for us or anyone else. And then, obviously the other piece that is a challenge is workforce and having the actual people to go out and dig and install the fiber in the ground. I'm not sure what we can do from a policy perspective on that, on those two things to help expedite. But one of the things that I think on this make ready idea that we've seen some states do that is intended not only to help with the cost, but more importantly, to help with the process, is doing some things on pole replacement. And, that can be an extremely, first of all, expensive part of a rural build out. If poles need to be replaced, that's whether it's munis or IOUs or co-op poles, for whatever reason, if it needs to be replaced right now in Missouri, it's that new attacher that has to pay the entire cost of that new pole. And so that's a challenge from a cost standpoint, but from a practical standpoint, going through this whole engineering process can be a challenge when you get, other people involved, and, there's disagreement on whether a pole needs to be replaced, and you go back and forth, and, ultimately you end up having to replace the pole. By that time you've delayed the project, and it's only the first portion of a very large project to build out. And so every single time you come through the engineering side of attaching to a pole, it just becomes a challenge. And so the thing that we've seen some states do that I think you'll see something in Missouri is creating some sort of a fund that if a pole is replaced for the purposes of broadband, that attacher could get some sort of reimbursement percentage, 25, 50, 75%, 100%, depending on what the state wants to do. But I can't underline enough how important that can be to help expedite the construction of these projects, whether it be RDOF or anything else that the state or local governments are funding on the broadband expansion side.
I was going to mention, Tim, we talked to people in Arkansas, and they're literally committing significant funds to exactly the workforce pipeline you're talking about. Just they don't have enough people down there to install properly, and it's basically they're backfilling, you know, the educational system, sort of a new industry. It's been around a while, but it's accelerated to such a point they're putting serious money into that. I was going to ask, looks like we've got Tim, Denny, Shalbina, Clarence, Wendy. Municipal side of things, are you guys hearing and seeing anything that gives you any sort of pause? Don't everybody jump in at once. Wendy's not bashful. You there?
I am. Hello, everyone. Since I'm not directly involved with, with this whole process, I don't have a lot to say other than we certainly appreciate what you have done. I know the cities appreciate as well as the counties. And we did have our ARPA fund committee meeting this morning. So we are delving into that. And of course, broadband is at the top of the list. So we had several applications that we went through, and just, trying to use that money to the best for our communities. And so I'll let Tim and Denny let you know what they know.
They have to unmute themselves first.
Right. Tim, you're not bashful. Neither are you, Denny. Maybe they can't find their mute button. Down at the bottom of your screen, maybe, or on your name, where you see your name. Put your cursor over that. Well.
It's Tim.
There's
I think
Tim.
I got to figure it out now. So we've worked with Sheridan Valley. We got a price for an initial run through town to get fiber into town and at least the business district as well as City Hall and the library, et cetera, hooked up. So I guess we need to figure out as to how do we apply for the grants, or how do we start to try to get the money from the state to get the project to move forward.
Any results out of your meeting this morning?
Tim wasn't there. Are you talking to me, Louis, as far as?
Any Tim, whomever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so
Tim.
we didn't apply through the county yet. We were going to start with try to get some of the state funds first, and we've got another project we'd like to help the county to help with. But if it's going to be a while, or state funds aren't available down at the municipality level, then we can definitely make application to the county as well as use some of our own relief funds.
Thank you. Trying to be respectful of everybody's time. So we've got another meeting. Folks are starting to come in. Anybody else? We basically jumped over new business, federal funds, infrastructure. So apologies for not following the agenda to the letter. But are there any other comments, concerns out there folks have moving forward, things that you're hearing, good, bad, indifferent. And if anybody wants to take Tim Arbider's job, it's open.
Representative, I would like to just make a couple comments. So I went back and looked at the policies that we were talking about earlier, and we did put in to our policies like a dig once type thing, only not just putting fiber in, but conduit to provide that opportunity for any vendor to come in and use that. We also have a section in there about making the middle mile fiber public access. I don't know if that really pertains so much in Missouri, but I know in other states that is a big issue. And then also, not that I want to step on any providers, because I don't think county government really is in the market to be the provider. But in a lot of other states, because they don't have providers that are willing to partner or step up, the actual counties are being an actual provider and running and maintaining their own infrastructure broadband systems. So not that I think that we need to do that in Missouri, but that might be something that might give some incentive to providers to really consider that, because if Grant County wants to take all their ARPA funds and infrastructure funds and develop their own broadband service, it's just going to cut out on the provider. So Mike, don't throw things at me, but that is a big opportunity that other counties and other states are doing, and I've been in contact with them how they've developed that. So I don't want to push that off as not being an opportunity, but that would take some legislative work at the state level to allow that to happen.
Which states? Aside from California.
Yeah, I don't know about California, but I know South Carolina, some of the East Coast counties. I'd have to get a hold of a couple different executive board members that I know at the NACO level and see what states actually have that ability to provide those services. But I'm pretty sure in Missouri, we have legislation that doesn't allow that. Is that not correct?
Last time I looked.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Tracy, there's actually some question on whether or not the application of what that law actually does on prohibition regarding broadband. And I don't know that, the one thing that I wanted to say, because Randy was hitting on an issue that I flagged for Lewis a couple weeks ago. We've got a really good opportunity with all this money coming in to really close the divide and get those people out in the rural areas that don't have anything at least connected. And we've really got to be coordinated at the state and local level in order to make sure that the resources, no matter where it's coming from, is targeted at people that don't have it. Because every dollar that a public government, that the government spends, whether at the state or local level, to incentivize private investment into areas that already have service, that's one less dollar that goes to that house at the end of the gravel road. And that's a concern I've got. We've started to see some RFPs out there to overbuild, in one community where there's 5 providers already giving service in the city. That's private money that could have went to serve the rural parts of that particular county. So, I say that in the context of what you brought up with government-owned networks. And, I think in certain situations that may be the right thing to do. I mean, if no one's willing to serve, if it's truly an unserved area and no one's willing to come in, maybe that's an option. But I think you've got to look at the history that some of those government-owned networks have had. And in certain situations, I mean, they just fail and they end up getting sold to a provider for $1, and because they just, they're hard to operate. I mean, there's a reason why it's expensive. There's a reason why, we're always trying to upgrade our infrastructure and look at new technologies and keep current with everything. And so, it's a challenge. So, I think that's sort of, in my mind, that's sort of the last the last option on the table. If nothing else is working, if you can't figure out a way to get stuff connected, then yeah, maybe that's part of a solution. But there's a lot of things you can go through prior to that before you get there.
I totally agree with you, Mike. I don't want to be a commissioner sitting there trying to run that. Believe me, I ran my own ISP before there was high speed. I mean, dial up to rural America. That I couldn't sell that thing fast enough. So anyway.
Yeah.
Where'd you have anything? Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Lewis, real quick, just from a school standpoint, you may have already been made aware of this, but when we talk about the ESSER 3 funds and the deadline for Missouri to appropriate those being March 24th, or we lose those. And if we lose those, it's not that it just goes back to the government and the money's not spent. It's to be redistributed to other states. So I hope that is getting out there to all of our legislators, because that does need to be a top priority to get that appropriated so that we don't lose the funds.
If you could send me something on that, that would be fine. We don't need to send that over to Quincy's calling, if you get my drift. So yeah, that's something we really.
We contacted the governor's office yesterday about that, as a matter of fact, and they are aware, and it is a priority.
Good deal.
My school district has already contacted me as well.
Yep.
Anything further? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Louis, sorry to interrupt, but I did put the website, it's actual Office of Administration, the ARPA toolkit.
Okay.
And under that, there's a link to broadband, wastewater. So if communities are doing that, I agree with Linda, you want to stay in touch with your RPCs, but it's also good to be able to just go to a link and look at what's going on and see updates. And my understanding is they do update that on a pretty regular basis.
Updates are good. Thank you. Third time. Anything further? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Second, Wendy Brumbach.
Thank you very much. Further discussion? We're adjourned.
Thank you.